Hey guys, welcome back to REVolutionX RC, and welcome to the next part of my Axial Wraith 1.9 build series. In this part of the series, we are going to look at replacing these shocks as well as, for now, I'm going to say changing to portal axles. I don't know if they're going to work, but if they do work, I'll be running portals. If they don't, I'll be going back to the straight axles. And I'll also cover some of the recent changes that I've made to it, like some 3D print parts that I've added. Alright, first off, let's go over some of the 3D printed changes that I've recently added to this rig. You can find these files on Thingiverse, and I'll put a link to the description to these files below. But here is a rear bed with a receiver box. So it fits in perfectly, it slides in, you don't need to screw anything in, it just slides in and it's held in place. I'll put a link to that. Also here we have a rear bumper. The rear body of the Wraith, it can get snagged, and this rear bumper here kind of prevents that body from snagging and just ripping off. It also provides two mounting holes, mounting points for that body, so you could screw in the body to this rear bumper, which is fantastic. And this is also found on Thingiverse from Humboldt EF, and I'll put a link to this in the description below as well. Now over here I have my own design here. I've created a battery tray right there. So this battery tray will allow me to run a shorty pack right here in a lower position. Instead of standing up, it can lie flat. So grab a battery out here so you can see, but it'll allow me to run a shorty battery pack in this orientation, so it's nice and low. And I'll also put a link to this battery tray. It uses the stock screw hole mounting points, and it'll also clear that fusion here. So I'll put a link to this in the description below as well. If you do use this battery tray, you do need to trim a little bit off of the size of this compartment right here and here, and that's right here. Let me see if I can get you a better look at that right there. This edge right here and this right, that's just to fit the shorty pack that is around this size. If you were to run a smaller battery like the Gen Ace Bashers, no problem, it'll fit right between here. But it does require a little trimming if you want to use a little bit bigger of a size of a battery. And you can also use a larger size battery and have it stand up if you wanted to. But this battery tray will allow you to kind of put the battery flat and a little bit more forward. Now let's get to the shocks. So by now you know these are stock SCX-102 shocks, or RTR ones at least. And I am going to be switching it out with these Element RC stock shocks, and these were the shocks that came on my Sendero. I really like these shocks. I like Element shocks. They work really good, they're really smooth, and they hold oil pretty well. So I will be replacing those shocks with these. And let's take a look at what I'm going to use for portal axles. For the portal axles, I will be using portal axles from Meus. So here are the Meus portal axles. Now it is a centered pumpkin, but these are supposed to fit SCX-102 style rigs pretty easily. So I do have that, as well as the rear axle right here. And it does come with links, because the steering link and drag links, they're a little bit different in length from stock. So the links that came with my 313mm extension kit for SCX-102, those links do not work for this axle right here, but it does provide you with links that has the correct length for the axle right there. So you don't need to worry about the links because they come with the axles. It does come with some hardware as well as a servo horn. I don't know if I'll need this servo horn, but it does come with one and necessary hardware. So we'll see if this axle works out for me. I hope it does, and then I'll be running Portal axles. Here is another product I'm considering putting on this Wraith 1.9. Now this is the BP Custom Wraith 1.9 chassis brace and bumper support. Now if you have heard, the original release Wraith 1.9s, or the earlier releases, had a weak spot. And basically this bumper here is only supported by this part of the frame screwed into this part of the frame, and it would snap right here. So on the earlier releases there were issues with the snapping, so this is meant to brace that. Basically it will brace that bumper support. It looks like I have a later release. You'll notice that it has like flares right there to make that part stronger. So it remains to be seen whether I'll use the bumper brace or not. I don't know. I like the look of stock, and if this is strong enough, I'll just stick to that. One of the problems with this brace is it also covers the screw holes for the receiver box, because you can only access them from under the rig, and that would prevent you from getting to the screws. You would have to remove the brace to remove the screws for the receiver box. So it remains to be seen whether I'll use this, but if I feel like I do need to use it, I will use it. One of the benefits to using this, especially the one with the panhard mount, so it's not a double shear, so it would give me a little bit more freedom to adjust that panhard rod location versus the double shear on the stock plastic where it's just set in one place. So depending on whether I need to have that adjustability, I might be using this. So for now, I will leave this off, and then we'll see the fitment for the Portal axles. Another recent 3D printed addition I've added to this, this is my own design as well. I created upside down body post mounts. So basically the stock, you would have the body post pins up here, and you would pin the vehicle right here, and I just didn't think it didn't look good with the body pins on top. So I created these where it has a bracket here. I just recreated this bracket with a hole for body posts, so I can just go like that, and I can access the body post pins from underneath, so I can pin them shut from underneath instead of on top. And I'll put a link to those parts in the description below as well. Alright, let's start off with these shocks. For the shocks, I'm going to use these Factory Team Enduro shock bushings for the top of the shocks. The bottom, I mean, I should replace the pivot ball at the bottom. I just don't have any extra other pivot balls right now to replace the stock ones with, but I will look into it. Maybe I can find some. But anyway, also to secure the shock bushings on the top, I will have to use, I guess, these washers from one of my Enduro kits. You could probably use any washer, but this is the easiest thing I could find in my toolbox. So I'll use these 4 washers for the mounting of these bushings on the top. Alright, so I actually was able to find some metal pivot balls in my toolbox. So I replaced all of them, and we are now ready to go ahead and replace these shocks. And I'll probably also just remove the axles while I'm at it. Actually, you know what? I do want to underdrive the rear axle, and I do have underdrive gears. Let me go ahead and find them. No, I had them somewhere. Alright, these are Mia's underdrive gears for AR44 type axles. So this should work with this axle right here. So I will underdrive the rear, and let's go ahead and do that first before I put the axles on the rig. Alright, I was able to remove the axle shafts from the rear portal axle, and I'm now ready to basically replace this rear diff gear with the Underdrive version. And I'll put a link to this in the description below. But this is a 833, and I believe stock is 827 or 830. Yeah, stock is 830, overdrive is 827, and underdrive is 833. So let's go ahead and take care of this. And it looks like there was plenty of grease put on these axles from the factory, which is a good sign. It's like plenty of grease in the housing, so I'll just reuse this grease. It looks like pretty good grease. Looks like Meus was really generous on the grease in here, so there's like more than enough. I'm gonna rub some grease off of this right here. Like I said, they were super generous with the grease. Alright, I have the two axle shafts back in, and we're ready to put the rest together. Just get some of this residue and put it back in the gear. Later. Let's get first. Alright, so I've just prepped the rear axle with the underdrive gears. Let's go ahead and remove the stock axles from the Wraith. Seemed to have lost much others. Right, let's move. Alright, I'm gonna find some shims to use and I'll be right back. Alright, I was able to find a shim to use. I might get a thicker shim later on, but for now I will just use this. Oops. Let's see. Yeah, let's take this. Alright, the Meus plastic is not as flexible as the Axial one, so it was a little bit hard to get this pivot ball in just to take up space, but I finally got that in. Anyway, see if I can get the upper link in now. Alright, I'm not in the best position to do this on camera, so I'm going to do this off camera and we'll be right back. Alright, it was a real snug fit, but I was able to get the link in position and I can start trying to thread this in. Once again, I'll do this off camera because I don't exactly have the leverage when trying to do this in front of the camera. Now what I'm going to do with these shocks is, instead of mounting them up to this higher mounting point right here, which is what normally rigs would do, I'm going to mount it at the same spot as the lower link. And that's because with the straight axles and these shocks are 90 millimeters, the stock shocks are 90 millimeters as well. With the straight axles, it sits lower with the stock mounting position, but since these are portals, it's going to sit higher if I use the same shock mount position on the lower end of the shocks. So I'm going to move it a little bit lower so it'll match the straight axles. And of course, if I do that, I'm going to need longer screws. So this is an M3x25 and that should work out. Alright, now the only thing left is the panhard mount, or panhard rod, but I just gotta make sure all the geometry lines up, make sure the shocks are spaced out evenly, or whether or not I need to put spacer at the bottom. It looks like it's good, it's straight up and down, so not bad. You see if the panhard rod lines up. Alright, so I've hit a snag. Basically the way this is set up, and it might be alleviated somewhat by using the BP chassis brace with the other panhard mount, but with these Meus Portal axles and the way I have it set up right now, I'm going to get no compression at all because of the way the panhard rod would be in the way. And on top of that, because I am using a long can fusion motor with that nod transmission, I'm using the motor's forward, and with the straight axles, I barely clear this motor. With these portals, since everything's up higher, it's going to hit the motor. So I think for right now, I'm going to save these portal axles for another build, and I'm going to go back to the straight axles. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the portal axles right now, and I'm going to put the straight axles back on, and I'll probably add overdrive gears to the front straight axle. I won't use the underdrive gears that I put in the Meus axles because I'll use that for a build later on, but well, I might try. Depends on if they fit or not, but let's go ahead and change this back to a straight axle. Alright, unfortunately the portals didn't work out this time. I definitely will attempt it again in the future, but in order to do that I would have to change the motor I'm using, and I'll probably have to change the location of the panhard mount. But for now, it's not a total loss. I am still going to be upgrading to these Element Enduro shocks, which should already be an improvement over the stock SCX-102 RTR shocks. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt these up. Compression. I'm gonna have to put limiters on the compression as well, just because it's gonna hit the motor still. That's something I did notice already with these straight axles on the first time. So we'll just limit compression a little bit and we should be fine. Yeah, the panhard will stop it from compressing further anyway. So I think we're back to a good spot. Yep, right there. So I just want to put some limiters right there. Okay. Alright, well, let's move to the rear axle. And I'm going to attempt to put the Meus underdrive in the rear axle. So let's see how that works out. Alright, looks like these Meus gears will work. They are AR44 compatible. Alright, we've got underdrive gears in the rear axle, and of course I need to put the wheel hexes on. Let's go ahead. Alright, I am ready to mount these out to the rear. Along with the Enduro shocks. Now I noticed that these pivot balls or standoffs, the shocks move around quite a bit on this. So I think I'm going to add an O-ring here just to reduce the movement. So I'm going to look for an O-ring and we'll be right back. Alright, so I was able to find an O-ring. I still need a pair for the front, but I was able to find two to use for the rear. And that should make the top of the shock less loose. You don't screw. double check. Right. Yeah, that's really nice. Alright, so after going through all that, I guess the only thing we really accomplished this episode was adding these Element Enduro shocks and the Meus Underdrive gears in the rear. Too bad we weren't able to fit the portals on. They will work if I didn't have some specific components on this rig, but because I am running that particular transmission with the Hobbywing Fusion moved forward and with this static panhard rod here, there are a few things that I would have to move around to get those portals to work. So if I were to stick with this transmission and use an outrunner, it will probably work, but I'd still have to clear the front panhard mount. In that case, I would use the BP chassis brace. But other than that, I think I'm just going to leave it as is with the stock panhard mount with the straight axles. So at least I was able to get their underdrive gears in the rear and use these Element Enduro shocks. So the next thing I'll probably do is look towards adding some weight on the axles. Since I am using the R44s, it should be easy to find something because these are these have been around for a while and there are tons of parts for them. But that's about it for this episode. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell on future updates of this Axial Wraith 1.9 build. Thanks for watching.